Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I want to talk about getting an accepted offer on your spec home. So if you're building a spec home and you've got a buyer that is interested in the house, how do you move that forward to the next step? There's a lot of different scenarios here in how this could happen. Number one, the first scenario would be, you've got a sign out in the front and you've got an info box with your contact info and info about the home that you're building, and somebody contacts you and wants to purchase the house. You meet with them at the house, and that next step, if they want to move ahead with it, you kind of need to step up and lead them through that process. If somebody calls, you meet them at the house, you walk them through the house, they really like the house, it's your job to basically tell them, okay, the next step would be, let's put everything down on paper. Let's get the number down for our purchase price. Let's figure out, put a date in there for the closing date. Let's get things on paper here. So that would be the first scenario, is this particular buyer that you meet with isn't working with the realtor and you don't have the home listed. So in this scenario, you're building the house. Maybe it's not done yet, and this family wants to buy the house, and what do you do next there? Well, if the house isn't done, the family that's buying the house, they can't close on the house until you have occupancy. So as far as figuring out a closing date, that's going to kind of be on you. You're going to need to know when you're going to be done with the house and when you're going to have occupancy on the house, because that's going to be the closing date that this family can close on the property. Now in Wisconsin, residential offer to purchase that we use for writing up an offer, because you own the home and you're building the house, you don't have to use a realtor to write up this offer. You can have this form, and I would suggest keeping a form on you in your vehicle at the house, so that if one day you happen to meet somebody out there, you're always ready to write the offer. One thing that I learned when I first started is I would have a great meeting with somebody at a house, and they pretty much indicated that they wanted to move ahead with purchasing the house, but if I didn't have the paperwork on me to do it, well, now I've got to set up another meeting. And now maybe they can't meet for 3-4 days later, and they get the cold feet syndrome and they go away, as opposed to you having everything right there ready to go, so that you can finalize it and write the offer and get the accepted offer right then and there. That's the way that you want to do it, the way that you want to handle it. Before you get too far into things with this family or individual, whoever's buying the house, you want to make sure that they're pre-approved. Because another thing that I learned when I was younger and first starting is I spent hours and hours with this one couple, and they were thinking about buying the model that I was doing an open house in, and I had multiple meetings with them. They would come in all the time. I spent a lot of time with them, and then all of a sudden, come to find out, once they actually talked to the bank, they were in absolutely no position whatsoever to buy this house at all. So I had basically wasted all my time. Now, I can look back at that and actually say that, that was a good learning process for me. I hadn't really met with anybody. I think they were probably the first people I ever met with. So it helped kind of break me in there. It helped me learn that, before I get too far involved with things or into depth with somebody, I need to make sure that they can actually do something. So this is where it's definitely good to have, a lender that and trust on hand. And maybe it's the lender that helped you with the financing on your spec house. Or maybe it's not, but you want to have somebody that you can send somebody to. Because even though somebody may have a pre-approval letter, it may be from a big national bank, and you don't want to, they aren't the smoothest and easiest to work with, especially if it's buying a spec home and this home isn't yet completed. This could be a nightmare of a process for both you and the buyers. So you want to make sure that they're going to be working with a lender that's going to make things easy for both of you. The harder it is for the buyer to buy a home, the harder it is for you to be able to have the buyer buy the home, and maybe there's a greater chance that the buyer doesn't go through with it because it's just too much of a hassle and the lender that they're working with just can't get it done. So if you've got somebody that you work with and you've got this meeting, you meet with this family at the house, they love the house, they want to move forward with it, so you put together the order purchase form together with them, and then that next step, maybe they haven't talked to a bank, or maybe they are pre-approved, but you want them to talk with your bank. You've got a specific bank that you work with, so you want to let that family know, that buyer know, hey, I'd like you to speak with my lender here, just to make sure that everything is good. The more things you are in control of, the better off you are, especially when it comes to the financing, because I have had deals where we've got an accepted offer from somebody on a spec house, and I wrote up the offer and they were approved through, I want to say it was US Bank, and they were supposed to, typically, especially back then, 30 days was a typical closing time. Well, this transaction ended up taking 2 months, and it kept getting delayed and it kept getting delayed, and it was on the buyer's end, and it wasn't her fault. It was just that the lender would ask for everything that they needed, she would give it to them, and then they needed more, and they needed this, and they needed that, and then they just aren't cut out for that type of stuff. Whereas if they would have went with a smaller local lender that I typically use or refer people to, it would have been smooth and easy for both of us, and it would have closed in 30 days. So if you can have control over that process, and again, this is your home that you're selling, you can tell people, hey, look, this is the only lender that I'm going to use. If you want to buy this house, then this is the lender that you're going to use. Now, of course, you could risk somebody saying, well, no, you know what, I work with my buddy over here at Big Star Mortgage, and that's the only place that I'm going to use. Well, I mean, then that's kind of up to you. You're going to risk maybe, losing out on them. But if in today's market and how hot things are, I mean, of course, you don't want to tell anybody to go take a hike. But again, at the same time, you want this to work out for both parties. Writing up the offer to purchase, at least here, and I think the forms are different. I did look up one from Ohio, as I had spoken with somebody in the Ohio area that's building a spec house, and it was completely different than the one in Wisconsin. It actually looked way better and less complicated. So with any of the offer to purchase forms, or at least with the one in Wisconsin, the one in Ohio that I saw, it's pretty much fill in the blank. So it's going to be, in Wisconsin here, it's a 10, I believe it's 10 pages now, and there's going to be certain things that you need to fill in. The purchase price, one of the most important things. So you're going to fill in what the purchase price amount is, and then right near that, at least in the state of Wisconsin, there's going to be an amount for earnest money. So earnest money is the money that a buyer's going to put down, almost like a deposit. Just going to cut in real quick. If you want help through this process of building a spec home, or where to get started with it, or maybe you've already got one going and how do you sell it now? How do you handle, buyers come in and bringing them through to make sure that you sell the home to them? I can help you through all of that with my consulting service that I offer. We can talk about this on the phone as much as you need to in order to make these things happen. I'll put info in my description below. A good faith, like, you know what, I'm really gonna do this, so here's $5,000, and if I walk away and it doesn't line up with any of the contingencies that we put in the offer to purchase, so meaning I walk away and I have no reason to do so, and there's something in the contract that says that I can't, then you, Mr. Seller, spec home builder, you get to keep the earnest money. You want to make sure that the earnest money is a good amount, something that they're not just gonna walk away from, because if they do get cold feet, and it, say this happens a couple of weeks before closing, you've been off the market now for a few weeks. what's your recourse? They're not going to go through with it. Say they get cold feet, they're not going to go through with it no matter what you do. They're not going to go through with it. So if you've got their earnest money, well, at least that helps soften the blow a little bit. So writing up the offer, if you're going to be doing that yourself, I would recommend having a real estate attorney look at it just to make sure that that everything's good there. Maybe that would probably be something that you could have the buyer do. If you're going to be writing up the offer to purchase for the house, you may want to let the buyer know, hey, you can run this past your, real estate attorney just to make sure that everything is good and you understand everything. Or, maybe another option is you've got a realtor that you know, that you like, that you trust, somebody that you would refer people to, somebody that, maybe knows a little bit about new construction. And what you could do is if a buyer comes in and they're not working with a realtor, you could recommend this realtor to the buyer. And you can say, hey, look, I've worked with this realtor before. They can now, even though you're recommending the realtor, this realtor would technically be working for the buyer. So even if you are referring a realtor to this specific buyer to write the offer, at that point, they need to be doing what's in the best interest of both parties, not just you or not just the buyers. For the buyer's realtor to write up the offer to purchase, you could agree upon a co-broke. They could have a buyer agency agreement signed with the buyer, and you would be agreeing to, this would be something that you would write into the offer to purchase. You'd be agreeing to pay a co-broke to this buyer's realtor. Before you even start writing up the offer, something very important to find out would be whether or not this buyer has a home to sell. If they've got a home to sell and they have not even put the home on the market yet, they're just out there, they want to see what's out there, but then they fell in love with your house, so they want to put an offer on it. You can't take an offer contingent upon a home sale like that in that situation. If they haven't even put their home on the market yet, who knows what they're going to be looking for. You can't bank on the fact that their home's going to sell. So if you accept an offer with the home sale contingency, that means that particular buyer will not be closing on your home until they sell their home. So what if you're 10 days away from completion, or what if your home is done and you get an accepted offer with somebody and it's got that home sale contingency in there and it takes them 2 months to sell their house? Well, now you're sitting there waiting 2 months for them to sell their house. You don't want to be in that situation. And if you're inexperienced with this, and say the buyer that comes in to purchase your spec home that you've been meeting with, say they've been working with the realtor, and so this realtor is going to be the one writing up the offer to purchase. Well, the realtor knows what they're doing when they're writing up this offer. So before you sign it, everything in there may look great. Before you sign it, you want to either sit down with that realtor and have them explain everything that's in there, so that if there is a home sale contingency in there, they're pointing that out to you. Or you want to have probably a real estate attorney that you can bring this offer to, somebody that's going to be on your side, and they're making sure to point out all of these things that you may or may not like in the offer, and that may be one of them. Now, if somebody has a home sale contingency, but their house is already listed, and maybe they've already got an accepted offer on their house, that's a little bit different. It's more of a sure thing, as opposed to just, not even having their house on the market, not knowing when it's going to sell. You don't even know what it's going to be priced at. So we tend to stay away from those, because there's enough people out there that can make offers without that. So you don't want to handcuff yourself and again, take your home off the market for an extended period of time and then have something not go through with it. So kind of going back to what I first started talking about, if this is a situation where a buyer comes in and they're not working with anybody, and you don't have the house listed, you don't have anybody representing you, it's up to you to make sure that this deal goes through. So you're going to be the one writing up the purchase order. and you're going to be the one that's making sure to put in the correct dates, and still, again, doing what's best for you and these buyers. But it's going to be up to you to take care of that part of the process. And then again, making sure that they're working with a lender that you know is going to get the deal done, or one that you're recommending. Because then once you get this accepted offer, that is going to go to their lender, and their lender is going to start the process of everything that they need to do, to get to that closing date and make the sales final. So that's kind of the scenario that you're going to do if you're not, if the home's not listed, or even if it is, but you've got somebody that comes in that's not working with a realtor. Now the scenario of you listing the spec house, which you can do this at any time. You can do it even before you start construction. You can list your spec house, and you can list that on the MLS. You can basically have, the blueprint, what the purchase price is going to be, potential occupancy date. So the house doesn't even have to be started in order to list it. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before. In the state of Wisconsin right now, you have to have your real estate license and work for another real estate company broker for 2 years before you could actually get your broker's license and then be able to have your own, real estate company and list your own properties. So prior to doing that, if you're going to be listing or having another real estate company list your spec home for sale, you're going to be paying a pretty decent percentage to do that. Now, benefit would be they're going to list it, put it on the MLS. You're going to have a realtor that's going to be the one that handles writing up the offer to purchase and is looking out for your best interest there. The other thing you can do is, if you don't have your real estate license, you don't have your broker's license, but you want to get it listed, there's a lot of flat fee brokers out there. So basically, you can pay a certain amount for them to just list your property on the MLS, and it's a flat fee that you would pay up front. But it's not as much of a percentage you would pay a full-fledged, listing service company. So you could do that. You could pay a flat fee, say $500 to have your house listed on the MLS. Then once you get a buyer that is interested in the home, you could pay this broker again another flat fee to write up the offer to purchase. So that way you don't have to write it up. You don't have to bring it to a real estate attorney, but you can essentially hire this same brokerage to write the offer to purchase. So that might be the way that you want to go, because again, you as the builder, it's different than if you've got a real estate agent listing a house for you. They're going to be the ones that are fielding all the calls. They're going to be the ones setting up the appointments. They're going to be the ones giving information to these buyers. If you're building a spec home and you're the builder and you know the most about this house, why would you want to have somebody else doing that? You want to be the one setting up the showings, because you want to be the one meeting them there and walking them through the house, because that's going to give you the best chance to sell the house to them. You want to be the one answering the questions. You don't want to depend on somebody else to possibly not get back to them and to spoil the sale of something. So you want to be the one that is in charge of that. So maybe doing a flat fee would be perfect, because when you do a flat fee, all they're going to be doing is listing on the MLS for you. You're going to be fielding the phone calls, setting up the appointments, and I think that's perfect. If you are building the spec home, you need to be in control of that. So again, you could do that, and then once you do have a buyer, you could then still get the information from the buyers, get their names, what the purchase price is going to be, get all of the info together. This realtor can then draft up the offer, and then you can get it signed by the buyer. But that way you don't have to go and then hire a separate real estate attorney to do this. Or if you list it with this flat fee brokerage, maybe it's another realtor that contacts you that has buyers. And again, you're still going to want to meet with the realtor and the buyers. A lot of times the realtors like to show a home without anybody else there, but if it's new construction, I've found that they do prefer that the builder's there, because if there are questions that the buyer has, you can answer them, and then the realtor doesn't have to go back and forth. So you're actually going to be making things easier for them as well. Now, if they like it and they want to make an offer, then their realtor is the one that's going to write the offer on the property. And then again, you would be paying that co-broke to the realtor, the buyer's realtor, on top of the flat fee listing fee that you had to put the property on the MLS. Because if it's just on the MLS and you're not offering any type of co-broke, buyers, realtors are not going to want to bring their buyers there because they're not going to get paid. So I think that kind of sums up all of the different scenarios that could happen when you decide you want to put your spec house up for sale. And I definitely would advise you to do open houses there while it's still being built, because if you want to get potential clients for customer builds, it's a great way to meet new people. In fact, my brother, who does sales for us as well, just did an open house in our soon-to-be finished model, and it's probably still a month or so away from being completed. It's just drywall, but he did an open house. He set up a card table, some chairs. He had a flyer for the home there. He had information on some of our other homes there, and he had 4 or 5 groups of people that stopped in over the weekend. And all we did was put out a post on Facebook, and we put some money behind it. We boosted it. We targeted what types of people we wanted that post to hit, and it hit them. And he got people that came into the open house. And again, this was a house that wasn't finished yet. So these people might not be people that actually buy that particular model, but maybe one of them ends up building a house with us. So it's a really great sales tool to do there. So those are your scenarios. If you're building a spec home and you're going to be listing it, that's what you do, and that's how you handle it. I hope that answers some of the questions that you may have about, how do you sell your spec home, or what do you do if you have a buyer that comes in that wants to buy it. Let me know if that helps. If you're liking these videos and you don't subscribe, please subscribe. Hit the little bell for notifications, and you'll be notified when I do new videos. Thank you so much for your time and watching. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless.